Hey guys, welcome back to the channel once again. Hope you're having a good one. My name's Nick, and today I'm continuing my Final Destination series review with part 2. If you're new to the channel, make sure to like and subscribe. I am going to be going through all of these films in this franchise, and then at the end, ranking them all from worst to best. So stick around if you want to see that. And let's not waste any time, let's get right into this. So Final Destination 2 was released in 2003 and stars Ali Larter and AJ Cook and was directed by David R. Ellis. So a little backstory. I am a huge fan of the original film. I just did a review for that, so you can go check that out. And when this one came out, I felt it was a little off. Something was a little off about this film. But I'll get into that. But yeah, I checked this out on its release date. So let's get right into the plot, guys. So this movie starts off with Kimberly and her friends leaving her house and they're heading to Daytona. The film really doesn't waste any time. They get to the highway and that's where the big premonition is gonna take place. Where, damn, this premonition is amazing. I'll say that right off the bat. My favorite thing about this movie is the highway scene. We get a ton of characters all on the highway with motorcycles, some with cars, you got a school bus, you got a little bit of everything. And the main girl is looking around and she's getting the same type of hints that Alex was receiving in the first film about how something bad's gonna happen. Like you hear the kids on the bus yelling, pile up, and different things like that, just giving her clues to what's gonna happen. And yeah, this movie doesn't waste too much time. We get right into the highway scene, the premonition, and boy, is it amazing. You get explosions, people get crushed. It all starts with a log coming off a back of a log truck, like a big transport. The chain lets go and the logs start coming out, and the first one goes right through the cop's car, right through the windshield, destroying his head and everything, blood coming out the back. It's brutal as hell. And yeah, as we're going, just other cars getting smashed up. You got a guy on a motorcycle pretty much getting squished and like almost blown up from getting squished, and it's just a bunch of crazy shit happening. Like people getting set on fire and explosions everywhere. It's done so well, and this is definitely my favorite part of the film. It's directed beautifully. But just like in the first film, Kimberly wakes up and it was all part of her premonition, a vision. But things are still starting to happen the same way as they did in her vision, so she decides to pull over, block the exit, or not the exit lane, but the enter lane to get onto the highway. She kind of blocks that, freaks everybody out, and she said she's not going any further because she knows they're all gonna die. A cop comes up and tries to see what's going on, and all in all, all the ones who stopped get saved, while the highway is still getting messed up. There's still explosions and crashes on there, but everyone that she's seen is still behind her, in a row behind her. So none of them died. So that's where they cheated death. The only people who happen to die that we know of is her friends that are in the vehicle with her, because she steps out to talk to the cop and her car gets sideswiped. Now, as you guessed it, as the movie goes on, death starts picking off all the characters who survived the crash one by one. So they eventually do find out that there was a survivor from Flight 180 who went through all the same shit as they're going through, named Clear. She's put up in an institution, an asylum. She voluntarily went there so that death couldn't get her. Essentially put herself in like a rubber room. And man, she is the biggest breath of fresh air in this film. I am not a fan of all these characters. They're a big step down from the original in my opinion. But thank God we get Clear back. She was one of the greats in the first, and she's definitely the best character in this film. They convince her to leave the asylum and help them all out because she knows a little bit what's going on. She also explains what happened to Alex in the first film because he was a survivor, but we find out he dies from like a brick accident or something, like a brick fell on him, and it's like, really? That's how Alex went out after being so smart in the first film? To me, that was the first negative. And they also figure out that death has a different pattern for them this time. In Flight 180, it went from the seats, who died first, to who was going to die after you cheated death. But this one works backwards. It was the last person to die becomes the first person to die. Death is working backwards, and they explain that he's tying up all the loose ends. Because we find out that all these characters actually had something to do with Flight 180 as well. They like one was on the bus when they hit one of the survivors in Flight 180, like where that girl just poof, Terry, she just explodes there when she's on the road. One of them was on that bus, and they all have something to do with Flight 180 somehow, or the survivors of Flight 180. They were all around there when they ended up getting their second coming. That's one thing I'll give this film for being positive. It does try to connect the two films, even though they're very different. They they somehow connect the characters with the plot of the first, which I appreciate it. And going into that, we also get Tony Todd returning as the mortician again, and he's creepy again. He's like moving a dead body or whatever, and it's pretty much with him and a few hints that they get, the clues that they get, that they figure out Death's new design, and they figure if they can bring in a new life, that maybe it will save them, like as in like a baby being born or whatever. So that's essentially the plot of the film. They're all getting picked off throughout after this, while they figure if the pregnant woman that was on the highway gives birth, maybe all this will end. That's kind of like a subplot on the side with the pregnant woman and a cop. She's first she gets put in jail, and then she's gonna give birth. So they're on their little adventure to the hospital for the whole film. And I really do like that subplot. I think that's one of the better aspects of this film. Uh, just that pregnant woman is, she had a certain charisma to her, and the cop that's with them, and it just made for a good little side story. The difference between this film with Kimberly and Alex, the two mains, Kimberly in this one has multiple visions throughout. Like she's always having these flashes. It's like, what the hell? Does she have more powers than what Alex had, or like how does this work with these premonitions and visions? It's starting to get a little confusing here. Like all throughout, she sees like someone crashing into a lake and drowning or whatever, and she figures that must be the pregnant woman. But we learn to find out later it's not exactly, her visions aren't exactly what she thinks. So like I said, we got a ton more characters this time, but to me they're mostly all forgettable compared to the first film. You got Carter, who was an asshole in the first, but he was still somewhat likable. Where I find these characters are like, I don't really care if they die or not. The druggie or the skeptic or the asshole lottery winner guy, I'm just like, whatever, man. Kill them off. That's what we're here for now. Where the first film, I actually wanted to see these characters survive. And that's what this franchise kind of becomes a trope for, where it's like, we're only here to watch them die at this point. It's almost like watching Friday the 13th film just to see Jason kill everybody instead of rooting for the survivors. So aside from Clear returning, she was great. Kimberly's okay, and the main cop that's with her, they're okay. Everyone else, I don't really care for, aside from the pregnant lady. She was okay too. But yeah, I didn't care for most of the cast in this. I felt like that brought it down a bit for me. And there's this one part where the black dude, he figures that Death ain't gonna get him. He's gonna choose when he goes, and he takes the gun and he shoots, and nothing's happening. And there's bullets in there, and they're like, Death, is this not his turn to go? I'm like, now that's bullshit. That's stupid. Like, if he, like, why would the bullets just not come out just because it's not his turn? Like, that's a little funky. I don't feel like they. I feel like that was a poor decision in the writing department. Just because it's like, so you can jump off a skyscraper and you'll survive. It's like, to me, you should still be able to commit suicide. Like, and why would Death not want you to? You already cheated Death, so it shouldn't care how you die. It just wants you dead, right? So, to me, that was another negative in the film. I didn't like that part. And in the end, once mostly everyone is dead, there's only a few left. We find out that it was not to bring in a new life. It had nothing to do with the baby. It had to do with Clear sacrificing herself in the water, and she essentially died for a bit, and they brought her back. So her dying and coming back saved everything. The story kind of wraps itself up in a way that, yeah, you can cheat Death, that these guys are real survivors, and it won't be coming back after them. From what we see at the end, they seem to be saved. Who is it? Like Kimberly and the cops left, where it's like, okay, you guys are okay because Kimberly gave her life and then came back. It's like, again, I don't like that ending. The first movie established there is no cheating, and no matter what, eventually it will come back for you. And this film kind of just throws that out and be like, no, you can beat it. There's a way. The very end though, when they're having the dinner or the barbecue over at the farmer's house. Whew, I love that ending though, with the kid going over and you find out he was saved by the druggie in the field when they were at their place, and like because he could have got hit by a vehicle or whatever, and the other guy pushed him out of the way. So really, that kid cheated death too. And when you just find out at the very end when he grabs the barbecue and he explodes, you're like, holy shit! And like his leg or arm or whatever lands in the mom's plate. I love that ending. That was awesome. It was a little tongue in cheek with the arm falling, but yeah, it was a great way to wrap things up. Kind of unexpected too. So let's get into the kills real quick. Our first death is Evan Lewis. He was the kind of the asshole type character from what we seen at the first. His death involves him at his apartment. There's fire starts while he has his hand stuck in the carburetor in the sink. He can't get it out because of his watch. And this little shit starts happening, and you figure he's done for in the apartment. But eventually, it's all this like just to trick you, because he ends up outside his apartment going down the fire escape, and he lands on the ground and he's fine. And the ladder's like this far away from him. He's like, whew. And then the ladder falls and goes right through his eye and kills him. You're like, what the fuck? But I don't know if the ladder would actually do that. It would have to be awfully heavy because it wasn't very far from his face to go all the way through it, like his skull. I don't know. I'm not a scientist or nothing. Maybe it would be enough weight and I don't know enough about physics, I guess, to go through the guy's face. But to me, it was a little implausible, but it was a cool death nonetheless. How they kept tricking you and tricking you. I only know the guy's name, Evan Lewis, because they say it like a bunch of times after he dies. But next up, we got at the dentist's office, we got the kid and the mom, where it's another one where they keep tricking you, where he's in there, the oxygen goes off, and he's like can't move because of the gas, and like a fish ornament comes down and like lands in his mouth, choking him. All while pigeons are breaking through the window in the main office of the dentist, and you think, yeah, this is it, and nope, everything's fine. They walk out of the dentist's office, and you're like, what the hell is this movie doing, tricking us like this nonstop? Like, what's going on? But you do find out the pigeons were involved because he sees a bunch outside and he scares them, which causes like a forklift operator or whatever to hit the buttons and drop this big slab of like glass on top of him, and it like folds his body and squishes him, and blood goes everywhere. And it's one of the better kills in this film, I believe. And again, it's just kind of out of nowhere. Next up, we got the mom going in the elevator with the guy with all the hooks on his hand in a box. They got like a bunch of fake arm hooks. And right there, you're like, something bad's gonna happen. Yeah, and it makes for a pretty great death too. Like her head gets caught in the elevator doors and it's going up and down, and it's pretty brutal. Next up, we got the bitch. I don't know her name. See, I just watched this film and there's almost too many characters that I don't care about, so I didn't remember their names. But that girl with the shorter hair, the bitchy one, she was driving. She gets like a log or a pole going across her leg so she can't move in the driver's seat. So they're using the jaws of life to try to get her out. And it's sparking shit, and she's like, be easy on it. And they go a little too rough. It sets off the airbag, and there was like a metal pipe in the airbag, like in the steering wheel. So when it opened, it went right in her forehead. Next up, we got the druggie, where he's in the field, and the barbed fence goes towards him and cuts him like here, and down lower in the lower section, he gets cut and split. Pretty cool kill. The effects are a little hokey on it, but not bad for the time. Again, I just don't know if a fence was propelled towards you, would it actually like cut right through you, or would it just like get stuck in you probably. But again, it's a film. And next we got the hospital kill where Eugene's in the bed and there's gases and that going in. So the first spark that happens, it blows up his room, also killing Claire, unfortunately, in the process. She was going to go see him. And I'm like, damn, she's my favorite character. But at least they killed her off at the end of the film and not right away. Like, bring her back for nothing. I felt at least she was there to support the group. And lastly, we got the farmer kid, Brian, where he explodes at the barbecue. I already mentioned this one, but yeah, that's an awesome, unexpected death at the very end. So there you have, those are all the kills. I feel like for the amount of characters we got, I was expecting more deaths. But we only get like one or two more than the first film. But they're all done fairly well, I'll give them that. It's just too bad. I don't think the emotional punch was there as much because I just didn't give a shit about any of these characters. So if they would have made me care a little bit more about them, maybe the deaths would have hit harder. But still, they're pretty good nonetheless. It's just the pacing of this film is not bad, but it's worse than the first. It takes an hour and 10 minutes to get the first three kills out there, and then the last like 20 minutes they start killing off quite a few rapidly. Where I'm like, they could have spaced it out better. I find just this whole story. I feel like these characters are asking question after question and not trying to figure out things on their own as much as like Alex did in the first. They're not working together as much as a team since they're all complete strangers. Yeah, the first film, none of them were friends, but they were all from the same classroom. They knew who each other were. So, and you had that tension with them working together since they never hung out before. And like, why would I talk to you now? I never talked to you my whole life in school. But this one, they're all complete strangers. So it's like, you understand why they don't want to communicate with each other, some of them, and it just made for a less interesting plot, I suppose. So in conclusion, this movie just never really resonated with me as much as I would have liked some of the other films in the franchise. And I think that's due to not being able to invest in these characters. We do get a kick-ass premonition though, probably the best in the whole franchise. I'll have to give it that with its highway scene. It's amazing. Like I said, the story gets a little messy with the like death working backwards and them trying to figure out how to bring in a new life, and it gets a little convoluted. Not too much, but more than I would have liked. But all in all, guys, this is not my favorite in the franchise, but it's still decent. It's still a good film. It gets a pass for me. I'm gonna give this film a 6.5 out of 10. It's decent enough. I think it's worth a watch for sure. I still go back to it every few years, but not as much as some of the other entries in the franchise. So, guys, let me know what you think of this movie, this franchise, down below. Is this one of your favorites? Because I know this one a lot of people really love. I was never one of those people. Uh, I definitely prefer the original to this one, but I know a lot of people are big fans of part two. It just never resonated with me like it does everybody else. I never did love it. I did like it though. It's not a bad film. But anyway, guys, that's all I got for you guys today. Make sure to stay tuned for Final Destination 3 movie review, which will be out soon. And just thanks for watching, guys.